All right, so we'll bring to order the October 27th, 2025 Community Building Subcommittee. This is the last one that we're gonna have of this subcommittee. So quick roll call, Mayor Pro Tem Perkins,
Here.
Councilor Franzosa,
Here.
Councilor Mendez. Here. You're also joined by the other members of the Septic to Sewer Decision-Making Committee, so. I think we might have one person for public comment, Mayor Pro
Okay.
Tem.
Sure. We can start with that.
Are they on-
Or do you want the minutes first and then that, or,
Up to you.
just want to get the minutes done with. Does anyone have any?
I move to approve the June 23rd, 2025 and August 11th, 2025 meeting minutes.
Second.
Right, I guess all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Right, I guess we could start with public comment unless you need a
Their
second.
hand up, so I assume you want to do public comment.
Okay.
we can ask,
So we can see.
And then. This is Marcy. Ryan, and you're allowed to speak now, Marcy, if you're giving comment. Marcy, if you'd like to give comment, you can unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I didn't realize I had the opportunity to speak. I was just raising my hand because we weren't hearing any sound for a while. It went away. But I would like to comment about, I have a comment about one of the applications, but I think until a decision is made, I don't know that I can really make a comment. So I guess I'll just back off for now.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
All right, then we will move on to the main agenda item for today, which is the kind of annual septic sewer update that we get in the next round of project selection. So turn this over to Jason and Teresa.
Great, thank you. Let me get this going. All right, great. Yeah, so as we said, this is the 2025 Neighborhood Extension Program selection meeting, which is really just another way of saying the septic to sewer selection for the year of 2025. This will be, I believe, the 8th selection in the history of this program. The program stems back to objectives that were identified within the 2014 collection system master plan to help convert people that were on private on-site septics over to the city sewer system. So I'm Jason Sir, principal engineer for the city of Bend. Joined with me is Teresa Finley, the program manager for the septic to sewer conversion program. Today, we will be running through the recommendation for the 2025 selection. The members, as Russ stated, we have 3 city councilors, Councilor Megan Perkins, Councilor Ariel Mendez, Councilor Gina Franzosa. Additionally, we have Russ Grayson, our chief operation.
Since Eric's here.
Okay, sorry. Eric King, city manager, Ryan Oster, our engineering director and city engineer, and Eric Forster, our assistant city engineer. Since we do have 6 people on the selection team, in the event of a tiebreaker, I will serve as the 7th vote. So just clearing that up. Some call outs or shout outs to city staff that help support this program. Mainly Teresa does a great job engaging with all of these residents out there in the public neighbor meetings, communicating with each one of them, whether it's the leader of the application or people that are also a part of it. So she spends a ton of time, and this is her Christmas. So let her have her moment. Also, we have Mike Gaffney representing our city legal department for code interpretations, what have you. So Mike is here with us. And then Corey Johnson, our engineering business manager, who helps us with any financial budgeting purposes for the septic to sewer program or projects that stem from the program. We'll go through the program overview, the applications that we did consider for selection this year, and then present to you a staff recommendation, and then open it up for deliberations amongst the committee, and then hold a vote. as far as leading those conversations, Ryan, if you can help kind of steer those conversations amongst the six of you, that would be great. So with that, I will hand it over to Teresa to talk about the program.
Great, thank you. This slide here goes over the process for the applications. And so we'll just kind of go over this pathway here. So first off, a citizen or homeowner in the area would reach out to myself, letting me know that they are interested in converting their septic to city sewer. I would meet with them to get kind of their neighborhood area, get some information. Then I work with the internal staff, which would be Jason and our internal engineer design on staff. Once we have the boundary area for what that application area would be, the applicant that is interested in spearheading that would then go door to door to the homeowners that are assigned as part of this application process. And then they would schedule a neighborhood meeting, which I would go out to the neighborhood and make sure that all of the homeowners that are impacted by this application fully understand the program details and what requirements will be in effect if and when they get selected. Once the submit an application, we come to the neighborhood selection committee, which helps select the next round of projects for completion. The city then goes through a design and construction of the project, which typically is about 2 years from start to finish. When the projects are completed, we issue a notice of operational completion to the homeowners, and we record that with Deschutes County. That lets the homeowner know that the time has started and they have 2 years to connect if they've signed a petition. The homeowner would then have to obtain a tank abandonment from Deschutes County. That is the first step. They take that tank abandonment permit and apply it to the city with their plumbing permits. They pay the fees. The plumber and or private excavator will then go do the work with the homeowner on their private property connecting to the city lateral that we've installed through the program. So circling back, we are today at the neighborhood extension meeting to select the next round. Just some stats for informational purposes. Through the 2022 selection, we have installed 343 laterals. 215 of those people have connected. We issued the notice of operational this week, or it might have been last week, for the 2023 selection. And 64 homeowners will be able to now connect to city sewer. 42 of those people are committed. So they do have a time frame of 2 years to commit once the time starts. In 2024, the selection is currently in design. 94 homes will be available to get laterals. 50 of those have committed. So to date, with all of those, we will have installed 501 laterals. This slide here is going to just go over the selection criteria. So we take in, and these were all adopted when the program was brought to life, and they appear in the Title 15 of the Bend Code. So the criteria on each application that we score against each other is the cost of the overall project, which includes design and construction, the number of properties that are going to be able to connect, the proximity of city planned or CIP projects in the area, the amount of percent signed. So how many people of those benefited properties have actually committed and will connect at the end of the project. And then we also score the age and status. So age of the drain field, and failing, the status would be whether it's failing or not. It says other factors, those would be in an admin policy, which we do not have to date. So currently they're scored on those 5 criteria. This here is just the map showing the vicinity of all of our applications. The ones with the asterisks are the ones we've received new this year. So we received 4 new applications, making 20 total on file with an average approximately $34 million price tag to complete all of the applications we've received. All of the applications, we get all of the information and we put it into a scoring calculation. This is just all of the raw data, which we will depict in more on the graphs in the next few slides. So this is just where all of the bulk
Sorry,
information
to
goes.
interrupt,
Yeah.
I think you were just talking, this presentation isn't posted.
It's posted
So,
because there is sensitive information.
Yes.
We'll email it to you right now so you can follow
oh,
along.
thank
Yeah,
you.
because we wanted to be sensitive in terms of it's a,
It was on the meeting invite, I believe.
oh, was it on the invite? Okay. You go to the calendar appointment?
It's the Outlook.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, we didn't want this to be posted and have.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You want me to hold on till
Yes.
you get it? Yeah,
I got it.
I didn't
It's
notice
on
it
the-
either,
it's on-
yeah.
I see
Let's
it.
hold for a second. Let's just, make everybody got it.
yeah,
Thank you.
good?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm in an update. My computer's updating.
Oh, you know.
Okay, so this is just all the information that we get from the applications on file, and we throw it all in here, and this ultimately will give us our scores at the end. So there's a lot to digest there. So we take all the information from that spreadsheet, and this one here is the adjusted cost per property. So you'll see that the raw debt is calculated into the 5 scoring criteria that is identified as part of the program. This here is the tiered approach, and this is the cost including design, taking into consideration the money committed back to the city with those people who have signed petitions. So by signing the petition, they are committing to connect in 2 years. So we calculate that money, which would be connection fee, SDC fees, and permits back to the city. And then we take that against the number of properties benefited. So how many committed and how many are benefited.
Teresa, could you just say something about if a household does not sign, it doesn't necessarily mean that they oppose this. It means, say more about what that.
So by not signing, they're still going to receive a lot of the benefit from the application if it's selected, but they do not have a time requirement of 2 years when the NOC is sent out. However, if the project is installed, the main line is active, the lateral is there, and they did not sign, but their septic system fails or needs a repair once that city main line's in there, they will not be able to do that, and they will have to connect.
But they could still take advantage of this if.
Absolutely, yeah.
If
So
they're-
everybody on the application area gets the grant of the 2-year discount on the connection fee. So they get the same benefits or credits, but they don't have to do it by a certain date on that NOC. Unless like again, their septic or have issues or fail afterwards.
The commitment's the only thing they're not subjected to as well, but they still get the benefits of the 50% discount on that connection fee. So they all get those perks of the project being installed.
This one here is a percent sign. This was a weighted score, average of 10. So the weighted score, this is where the public or neighbors have the most influence on their applications. I get often asked, how can we really, make sure our application's chosen? And it's really getting more participation from your neighbors. So the higher signed, you'll see here, the higher the score is for the percent signed. And that's really where homeowners have the most influence on the overall score.
And you'll just note that even though the highest one here gets the score of 10, that does not mean that they have 100% signed. It's just we shifted the curve with the weighted factor to make the highest percent signed a score of 10, and then basically attenuate the flow or the scores after that. So just to understand what we are seeing on the screen.
And then the weighted factor is the aggregation of the sum of all of the other.
It's like the coefficient to make the highest percent signed application a score of 10. That coefficient then is multiplied against all the other application scores just to normalize the curve there.
But it represents like the average age and the.
This one's just the committed, the percent committed. So think about these are each individual categories. This is just about the percent signed of how many people are committing to signing up or connecting within that 2-year period after completion.
This here is going to be the average age of a septic system. Again, earlier I said we go off the drain field age. We do not go off a tank. So a tank could have been just put in, but we go off of the average age of a drain field. And most of those throughout the city of Bend are 40 years or older, as you can tell here by this graph. We do utilize Dial, which is the Deschutes County information page, to verify that there have been no changes in tank age. Again, we go off of any major repairs, which would be the drain field. So we go off the application and then we confirm it with Dial, since they are the septic record owners, essentially. From there, we take the scores and we get the scoring the number of failing systems on an application. They do have to submit documentation with proof of a septic system that is failing. And again, the highest here is a 10-point score. So if they've got 1 or 2, they get a score of 3 and so on. This here is a capital improvement. So vicinity of a capital improvement project, that's something that the city might be coming in and taking care of. So this would be if it's got a project that facilitates construction in another area or allows an extension of a sewer system, they receive the highest point of 10. If the city's going to come in and install something in a future state, they will receive the lower 3 score because the city will be handling that. But facilitate is key for a sewer extension in that area.
You can think of that as like kind of like a backbone for you bring sewer to an area, then more areas can go into it. So that's where the 10 is, if it facilitates other areas or other streets to then drain to it. Because otherwise that property might be too far away from a length, which length equates to a cost. So you need, call it phase 1 to get to the phase 2 area. So that's what a score of 10 does. And 6 is just the completion of that upstream basin.
Could I ask you about the weight of these, the point system? So I would have thought that number of failing systems would count for more weight than just the age of the system, because the age of the system is sort of representing the likelihood that something will fail. So, but they're both weighted, you know, on a 10-point scale. Is there a different way to think about that? Or should we think about, you know, if there's a system that's already failing, that seems like that should be weighted a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, this is the way the criteria is established as of today, really trying to give it, if you don't have that failing system on any given application, it's just that score of 0, where each additional failing system is 3 points, so 3, and then another one is to 6, and another one goes to 10. Really trying to not incentivize, but really have that stand out. Like if you didn't have any failing system, then you just are subjected to all the other criteria. Where if you really do a 3-point addition to any given application, and you'll see it at the end, a little bit like how all the scores stack up. 3 points is pretty significant.
Okay.
It does move the needle as far as your ranking. So good question, good observation. And if maybe we look at the overall score, and then if you want to further expand on that, we can have the conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So once we have all of those scores, they get populated. And again, here's the 5 criteria that we spoke about that they get scored on. And so these are in highest ranking order from highest scoring application to lowest. You'll note on the side there is selection cycles. That is for information only. It's not part of the scoring criteria at all, but I wanted to be able to show you how many times you may have seen an application through a selection cycle. So for example, Air Park is just received this year. You've never seen it before. Denning, this is the 4th year that it's been brought to the committee for recommendation or selection. So those aren't factored, but it's just a kind of an informational slide there. Real quick, I'd like to also address that on the funding, you'll notice there's an asterisk there. Some of these projects have gotten some design work done. Kings Forest area is one particular area that hasn't gotten design when they were see how long they can take that gravity in that area. So they have incurred some design cost, which does change if you were to look from the application scores to the raw summary. The fees or the amounts to finish are slightly different. So the funding required is the balance to complete the design and construction on that specific application.
But the costs that have been incurred to get that design to that 90% level were factored into the cost per property. So it is an equitable lens across the board. It's just then you take the cost that has been incurred and then look at the funding remaining, because that's what we have to complete. So with that, Teresa produces these scores, this table, then her and I work closely on this. So as the projects are selected or the committee selects a project, then I work with our budget team, with our project management team to get these projects and then proceed into that design phase. We do have okay, sorry. So we work on that. We do have a $3.5 million annual budget. So that's, one of the main constraints that we do apply to this. The project, as you can see, they're total $34 million. And so we do try to incrementally make a dent into this list. The way we've approached this septic to sewer selection in the past is called the traditional approach, and we're gonna call this the option A. What this approach looks like is we have that $3.5 million annual budget, and we start with the highest ranking application. Does it fit within that $3.5 million budget? If yes, we select it and then move on to the next one. If number 2 fits within that remaining budget, we select it and move on. If it doesn't, we skip over it until that $3.5 million is accounted for. So in this case, with this approach, the projects, and it's a little bit hard to see on the screen, but basically you look at Air Park with about a $1 million cost to remaining costs. We select that one. We move on to Denning. Denning plus Air Park is 2.3, so it's still within. We have a remainder. We get to Ponderosa, which was number 3. It did not fit within the budget, so then we kind of keep going down that list. The way that this worked out is that option A, called the traditional, which is basically just picking the highest ranking application if it fits within the annual budget, would be a selection of the Air Park Drive, the Denning Drive, the Waco Drive, and Juniper Haven application. So 4 applications as part of the option A approach. The other option for consideration is the option B. We call it the alternative. And really the idea here is also trying to factor in the highest ranking applications, because that's the objective criteria in which all these applications are scored against. In this case, Denning Drive is an application that facilitates the extension of another project, another application in the queue. That other application is Woodhaven. So when I talked about phase 1, phase 2, Woodhaven West, as highlighted, if you can see on the screen, it flows directly into Denning. So if we do option A, Denning gets terminated within a future stub out for extension into the Woodhaven West application. So if we do option B, we would just continue with that extension rather than terminate a temporary stub out, if you will, for Denning. We would just continue down that path with the Woodhaven West application. There are pros and cons to both of these that we can discuss. You guys can deliberate amongst yourselves. There are value in that we are right there and is purely a continuation. That contractor does not stop at that intersection, and they just continue into Woodhaven. This is an area that we have seen a lot of construction. Right, good for them is they have been able to be selected. And so, but that is this, all of these havens are off of Pettigrew and Fargo, if you guys can think of just north of Reed Market. So we will be working in that area. So option B would be the Air Park Drive, Denning Drive, and then the Woodhaven West application. So this does select the first and second either way. So on this, you can see A and B, Air Park and Denning is selected regardless. With option A, you would get Waco and Juniper Haven, and with B, you would get Woodhaven West.
Does that save money if you, does it lower the cost if you're just continuing on rather than stepping out and start? I mean, would that make Woodhaven?
There's absolutely efficiencies with it. Contractors mobilized, they just keep digging along that same trench line. There are other components that we would be installing as a temporary structure that would not be needed if we just continue with mainline sewer. So we don't have that temporary terminus that would just basically be trashed,
Mhm.
if you will, if we go and pick up from that spot in the future.
Okay.
Mobilization is a huge cost for any project. So once you're there, there's opportunities to keep going. I do want to make sure I'm careful. Juniper Haven is about a block or 2 blocks, three blocks, I think, away. So it's not like it's a huge other side of town. I want to be very clear on that. But yes, efficiency, as you can imagine, when you're digging a trench line, if you just keep on going versus terminate and stop, and then you mobilize it somewhere else, there are costs associated with that. Efficiencies are a big thing that we look at, production rates, and really trying to hopefully impact an area once and then be done. Construction fatigue is a factor to consider. It's not a objective criteria, but it's something for the committee that would task you guys to ponder as you guys deliberate the 2 different selections that we
How
could
much
possibly
are we
do.
talking about on that construction fatigue factor? I mean, is this like, what's the duration of these projects?
Usually we start them in the spring, so April, May timeframe, and then with the 2023 selection, we just finished last week, so mid to end of October. They do work in a linear fashion, and we do oftentimes put constraints that, like in this case, Denning, you might have to have that paved out and complete in advance of paving the Woodhaven, for example. So that Denning, the roadway isn't torn up for a period of 6-7 months. But once that trench is installed, the pipe is installed, the crew just keeps, the whole activity shifts down. So you're not necessarily having somebody working in front of your house for that period of time.
And then what's the timing like for option B? Because the required funding exceeds the 3.5 million available, right?
I think it's the next slide, honestly. I'll talk to that. So good question. So moving on, I'll talk about this more, but so option A is the Air Park Denning, Waco, Juniper Haven. You can kind of see where Denning and Juniper Haven are located. It is about 3 blocks in between. So not a huge reach, but it is not a continuation. There's still value in getting it done. Waco is a little pocket by itself. Doesn't make it any less important, but that's we're going back to this potential efficiency perspective. So that's what option A looks like, and option B is the Air Park, Denning, and Woodhaven. So Woodhaven is more of a north-south alignment. It is on Fargo, but it does serve the western portion of Woodhaven. So hopefully the terminology doesn't convolute things, but that's where Woodhaven flows north-south into Denning, which is an east-west, flows into Pettigrew, and then on from there. So these are the option A, option B. Going to the question that we just heard here. So funding is a great question. Bottom line there is $3.5 million is our annual program budget. Looking in the option A, the traditional approach here, we have Air Park, Denning, then Waco and Juniper Haven, which total about $3.6 million. In the option B, we have Air Park, Denning, and Woodhaven. Pointing out the cost of Denning, the $1.3 million is factored into Woodhaven, because for Woodhaven to go, you have to get Denning. So it's truly just an additional $1.3 million. So in total, these projects are about the same, 3.6 versus 3.65. We do have a $3.5 million annual budget. Both of these options, we are going to be looking to deliver through internal design efforts. And so right now, outside consulting fees are factored into these costs in the event that we don't have the internal capacity to deliver it through our own staff. So we have funding in there in those numbers for consultants, that if we utilize our internal staff, which we are able to on this selection, those numbers will come down. Additionally, there are opportunities for us to fund it through the overall water reclamation fund. Any additional, and that's also savings from past septic to sewer projects, the one we just did, those dollars can carry forward as well. So we are effectively at the $3.5 million.
So the 2.6 for Woodhaven always includes Denning.
Correct. because otherwise Woodhaven would float to nowhere. So it has to get that Denning leg. And so that goes back to that CIP category that we were discussing earlier, is it relies on somebody else to go or another street. So looking at this, the map's a little bit more. This is the Air Park Drive application. The lighter colored lots are the ones that have committed to connection within that 2-year time frame if selected. So this is Air Park. It is on the east side of the airstrip, the Bend airstrip there in town. That's what that application looks like. Once again, this is part of options A and B. This was our highest scoring application. The next highest scoring was Denning, which is included as part A and B. Once again, the lighter colored are the ones that will commit or have committed to connection within that 2-year period. The red ones are the ones that haven't committed, but going back to that is they still have the same incentive to connect. Looking at Waco, this is part of the option A. And then Juniper Haven, which is part of the option A as well. And then looking at option B, this is the Woodhaven West. So as I spoke to, it's more of the north-south alignment. It is on Fargo. And then it does turn east on Denning Road. So Denning is also included within this larger application area. Going back to, and this only bring it back to the funding. Now you guys have seen the maps. This is what we are asking the Septic to Sewer Selection Committee to deliberate, discuss amongst yourselves, and then upon deliberations to effectively vote on option A or option B. So with that, that's the end of our presentation. I'll leave this on the screen for now. If I need to go back, please let me know. But Teresa and I are available to answer any questions.
I'm trying to get a sense of your question about cost savings.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add on the cost savings since it, since Woodhaven always includes Denning, is there a sense of like, oh, this, what would the standalone cost look like if it had to be done apart from Denning?
Yeah, the biggest aspect is the efficiencies of just keeping going. That's a number that's really hard to estimate that without talking to a contractor of like, what would it look like versus keep going? I don't have a percentage that I could tell you. Each company is going to be a little bit different, but just imagine like cleaning up your work to then mobilize to another spot to start digging there. Another, more on the technical side is when you're excavating through rock, which is what we most commonly have here. You need what's called a point of relief, as you just dig down into solid rock. It doesn't have anywhere to go. That rock, you have to kind of excavate it a little bit as you're hammering down. If you have an open trench, you can excavate into it and it has that point of relief. So from a production perspective, contractors always look at that and say that's why they start in one spot and work in a linear manner versus just hopping around. So there's that aspect. The componentry of what's called a flushing inlet, which is like a clean out or a temporary manhole. Pricing on that could be between $5,000 to $10,000 to $15,000. Looking at that, so that would be a structure that is not needed if we just keep going with it.
Thank you for that. Well, I'd be curious to hear what you all are thinking about, but I can't get away from, so the two things that I feel like are important that stand out on Waco and Juniper Haven are both of those areas have been in 4 and 5 years respectively, waiting for this program. And each of Waco and Juniper Haven both have 2 existing failed systems. And I'm trying to see, I want to compare the number of failed systems again across them, but I feel like I'm tempted to say I kind of would be loath to miss the opportunity on Waco and Juniper Haven because they've both been waiting and they have so many existing failed systems.
just on that note, I was, after you mentioned that the first time, and if you flip back a couple, Jason, to the original scoring where it has the percent of failing systems on the far right, so keep going back a little bit more.
Which
Yeah, all the way back to your original scoring criteria.
the raw data.
Yeah, the raw data. The 4 projects built by option A are our 4 highest percentages of failing septic systems. So the option A would hit Denning, it would hit Juniper Haven, it would hit Waco, and it would hit Air Park. So to your point, those 4 projects would hit the 7%, 22, 25, and 14. So as your question was to staff, how does failing systems factor in? You can, like, they had a big role in how we got to the traditional selection of option A, which would in fact address the 4 projects with the highest number of percentage of failing systems.
Right.
So interesting note. Yeah.
I think also more than just the percentage though, it's the absolute number also, I think, because. let's see what-
Yeah. So like, yeah, Woodhaven has 2 failing, but it's only 6% of their total properties.
Right,
So
right.
option B would also address 2 failing systems today. But that's only a 6% failing compared to a 7 or a 22 or, yeah, I
Mhm.
guess in this case, you'd be comparing 6% to 22%.
Have you done the math in terms of how many properties under option A and option, like, what's the difference there?
Yeah, I mean. I thought you had it out.
I didn't,
Okay.
because I was
Um,
trying to make sense of it in my mind. Is that are these what you wanted?
Because Waco has 2 failing and also Juniper Haven has 2 failing.
The overall number of properties
Yeah, the overall
benefited.
number
Total.
that would benefit from.
Oh, yeah, yeah, so it's funny, it's 46 either way.
Either way, we have
Oh,
to say,
yeah.
either
Okay,
way,
that doesn't-
46.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask about
That's not
that.
helpful at all.
And then on the percent signed, of the 46, option A, 21 has signed up, option B is 20.
Ah,
So once again, very similar
Take
data.
that consideration off the table.
Good to know you're not gonna make a wrong decision today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I do want to stress that as we are presenting option B, not to necessarily advocate for it, but because it's just an alternative way of
Yeah.
thinking about it, because we are presented with an opportunity for continuation. There is benefit, as Ari, as you're saying, to, getting the other applications that do have failing systems now.
Maybe another way to ask the question, what do you think of the option A versus B really sets us up for the future? To connect more systems in the future, maybe not through this round, but like what puts us in a better position to accept the most amount of applications?
I mean, getting denning done, which is part of both, is what helps other areas go, which the other area in this case is Woodhaven. All of these other ones are the completion of the basin, so they don't actually facilitate further build. They are pockets that just are on septic still. So it's kind of hard to answer the question other than denning, which we're recommending denning either way.
Either way, yeah, okay.
Just to have a question about what you've seen in the past. How many, do you have a sense for how many neighbors that didn't sign sort of opted in within 2 years?
Like the numbers that Teresa shared, we had about a 2/3 connection to what we have installed. And he's like, we've installed roughly 300 laterals and about 200 have connected. So 60%, 67% is pretty high. A lot of these, as you can see in the percent signed column, they range with the highest one being 75%. A lot of them are in the 40s. And so if you just compare on average, maybe a 40 to 50% percent connected, but once again, the ones that we do select are the higher percents. We are getting a lot of stragglers or other people to join on because 67% just tells you that's not our average here. So a lot of people are finding the value to connecting and taking advantage of that 2-year incentive that we do offer.
A lot of times it's properties who may have not signed, sold since the project's been done, and then new owners want to take advantage of the discounted rate, so they might sign up after the fact. So a lot of things do happen for those non-signs. Once the project's done, either people are taking advantage of the discount or it's a new homeowner who has a different perspective on the.
But just to clarify, you did say 500 folks have signed up total since the program started?
We've installed 501 laterals.
Okay.
We, through the project that's in design right now, we will have installed
That's
500.
well.
We will have installed.
Okay.
Yeah. To date, we have connected or installed is the 300 and change.
343.
343 that was done as part of the 2022 selection with the completion of the project we just did last week. So just timing wise, usually in that October, we will add the additional 60 something properties.
And these numbers do calculate for people who might have connected after their expiration date. So some people might have been committed and let it go, and they're paying the full amounts, but it still calculates as a connected property.
If we wanted to minimize construction fatigue, I was just trying to get a sense of looking at the map. A lot of these are parallel streets and I don't get a good sense of how far the effects of these projects travel. You know, I think you can still hear them a block over, but there's some separation in these. It does one option stand out in terms of, oh, this is people are going to be dealing with this in a concentrated way for a longer period than the other option?
Noise is always a factor with any construction. I mean, there's road noise too, just the use of a roadway, reed markets right there. Really the biggest impact is from either a dust or just access to your house. These projects typically on these side streets, not like the Pettigrews that we did. They are very localized. And so our contractors do work with the residents there to make sure local access is always provided. Contractors have been great to work with to date, working, even if the trench is down the middle of the road, there is enough right of way to get a travel lane past them in a safe manner. Driveways are always available until we're like paving right there, so a couple hour inconvenience. But from that access perspective, it's different than your normal route or routine, but it's always there. So you would be driving on temporary roadway for a period of time. Noise is a thing, right? I mean, you're hearing it on your street or the street to the north, south, east, west. But dust
doesn't stand out as more.
It really doesn't. I mean, it's just, yeah.
I would say, Jason, go to slide 23, I think it is, the application area map for option B, just to highlight all the way at the end, the zoomed in version. When you show like option B, application area maps for option B, the bigger, that one.
Okay.
So just an example, Woodhaven and Pine Haven are previous septic to sewer projects that were built. And we're getting now people on Denning and Woodhaven saying, oh, you built that for them, now come do it for us. So the nearby properties are seeing the benefit, and they, having watched their neighbor go through it, they're like, it's worth it. Like, let's suffer through that as well, so we can connect to the city system.
So a couple of years ago, we did install Pettigrew, which I think the cursor shows Pettigrew there, and Bayou, which is right on the northern edge there. That got installed. The following year, we did Pine Haven, which is right there, and then Woodhaven, which is right there. We do have a project in design right now that will go to construction next spring. It's on Azalea, which is a couple of streets north of here. It is outside the map limits here, but Clearway is a street to the north, and I believe it's just right there on the other side. So this is an area that a lot of candidates or offers a lot of great candidates. And so Pettigrew, for that example, getting that trunk line in has really opened up all of these side streets, all the havens. So not necessarily an easy choice, but they're both great options. And as Eric said, you can't pick wrong.
So, you don't feel like you have to agree, but I would probably advocate for option A myself, just because if I go to the scoring criteria, it does award first, second, and fourth, which is kind of consistent with awarding the highest ranking projects. Understand the inability to build Denning and then to go north-south on there, but if we select option B, we're not picking Juniper Haven, which we have a stub out to now already. So at some point, we're gonna come back to do Juniper Haven anyway, at some future selection. So yeah, just generally out of overall consistency with how we've selected in the past, I would advocate for option A. But I could be convinced the other way if there's compelling reasons why doing Woodhaven.
I was originally very compelled by option B because it was gonna get something completed, but not recognizing that Juniper Haven is in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
So you're returning to the neighborhood anyway,
Yes.
so then I reverted back to, okay, option A is just going through the scoring. As it is, as we traditionally had. If Denning was way off in the corner of the city, then it would make sense to get it all done in one swipe. But then, yeah, I just let the scoring rank itself.
I kind of, I guess maybe I prefer option A. I'm glad that both options have the same number of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did, I was like,
Together.
like maybe just like really just, make it obvious, and like that didn't help at all. They're really neck and neck.
Yeah, totally. And I kind of like that Waco is it's sort of closer in location, on Bear Creek. It is kind of walking distance, to services and things like that. So I feel like that does that'll help, in the future if those property owners decide to do any infill housing, that'll help them to do that. So I guess that's.
Right.
So if it, check my math here, option A fixes 7 failed septic systems. And option B fixes 5.
Check real quick.
And I felt like I did have a value on how many periods these neighborhoods had been waiting, but I mean, Woodhaven has been waiting 5 periods. But because it's in option B, I feel like I have a preference for option A just because it fixes 7 failed existing systems.
I do get 7. I get 4 with the option B because the Denning one would be counted twice because it's part of the Woodhaven one. So that's so if you count Air Park and Woodhaven, then there's 2 on each one of those. So it'd be 4 with B and 7 with A. You're correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in option A, a lot of them have been, Denning's been there for 4, Waco's for 4, right? Juniper Haven's for 4, so. I thought,
Let me go back to that.
I'm sorry, yeah,
Juniper Haven was 5.
yeah, so that was a lot for option A.
Yeah, they've been in the system waiting
Yeah.
for selection for a while.
And in terms of Eric's question, if we went with option A, I would expect to see Woodhaven pretty close to the top in the next round.
Potentially, yeah, I mean.
We don't know what else
like,
would be
yeah,
added,
there
but
could be a new application,
as
one
it
of the
stands
existing
now.
ones could get 5 more people to sign on.
I mean, Air
Yeah.
Park was brand new this year and it came in strong at
Yeah.
first, so, and they can change every single year, every month, because you will sign and rescind off and on, up until September 1st, so it's really hard to forecast what would be next.
So we're penalizing people who had their act together and joined early. Yeah, that's a hard one. I mean,
Yeah, so how does that work, the new cycle? I'm sorry if you went into this and I.
So once
missed it.
we make our decision, it kind of opens things up, and then homeowners who've signed or have not signed can start submitting or rescinding signatures up until September 1st of.
You have to resend.
Mhm.
Yeah, so Teresa has that conversation a lot. If somebody didn't get selected, well, how
Mhm.
can I make it a more attractive application? And the one thing they can influence is
Sign it.
how many people are involved.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could see Ponderosa Estates was brand new this year, Wilderness Way was brand new, and they both,
They had a lot of.
they
things signed.
leapfrogged a lot.
They were really strong, but we just didn't
Yeah.
have the budget.
Yeah, does that, I mean, what is that, what do you tell someone like Ponderosa, cause it's a large.
Ponderosa was
Houses.
kind of an interesting, it was submitted, kind of, want to say out of, it was kind of submitted in correctly. They kind of went amongst themselves at an HOA meeting, I think, and submitted the petition, and it wouldn't have been what we would have built. I think they kind of ended their application mid-street, and we like to put the manholes in the end of line or top of line in an intersection. So we had to go back to that neighborhood and say, we are gonna meet, we want to accept your application, but we do have to kind of redo these boundary areas, which brought Wilderness Way into its own application.
And that's the value of really meeting with Teresa. There are complexities to the program that, things are good to go the way they are. So like Teresa went out there and met with them, had those conversations. We met with them talking about it. It is a larger application, but they try to get their entire area complete, their entire neighborhood or subdivision. That's where I'm looking.
And so with Ponderosa, we met with them and said, the way you submitted it, we can't pick it. The chances are very low. It was like $5 million. So we met with them and said, where's your home? Where you're going to be the spokesperson. And then so we kind of refined the areas that way, and that produced 2 more applications.
So is anyone leaning towards option B instead of option A?
You know what I'm thinking of, because we talked about this actually before I was elected. And at that time, the land use laws were different. And if you were in an HOA where, that didn't allow ADUs or whatever, it seemed as though the city was subsidizing, sewer in a neighborhood where folks, probably have a little bit more money, than other parts of town. And so I was kind of, curious about like the equity component of the city's investment into sewer in different neighborhoods in town. And that's, I guess to my mind, that's the one thing here that maybe we're not looking at in the numbers is like the kind of the socioeconomic component of the neighborhoods who are getting this assistance. Because we all know what neighborhoods in town are very successful at engaging their neighbors, and they tend to be the ones that have more money and time to put in to get folks to collect signatures and things like that. So that was the only thing I was kind of thinking of is like, is the signatures collected, is that even an appropriate, metric, or is there another metric kind of to be looking at?
It's pathetic. I guess it's hard when you're dealing with something like a failed septic system too. It's like,
because they have no option, right? Basically, unless they have 5 acres or something like that, and they have a reserve like drain field or something.
Yeah, it's working with the county in terms of their criteria, and it's specific to the lot. If can they actually rebuild? And then we used to have criteria if you were so many feet from an existing sewer line, you had to extend. And so this whole program got set up to just directly deal with failing septic tanks. Didn't look at any of the factors that you just brought up. It was more of, we've got a just slew of failing septic tanks. How do we create a program and criteria to kind of over time effectively get sewer into these neighborhoods?
Yeah, and purely based on that this is 7. That's more than half. I think I count 14 or 12 total. I think I count 12 failing septic systems total. I guess that maybe, sorry, another question for you. We know these septic systems are failing because that is in the application, or like, how do we know that we have failing septic systems?
They have to submit proof of documentation. So right now it could be photos of sludge backup. It could be a report from a plumber or septic company that says, like the last report might state that it's close to failing.
Or do you think we're missing some? Like people might have failing septic systems.
Because we don't get people who don't sign, we don't get that information from them unless I have to go check Dial. So if something is going on that hasn't been permitted through Dial, we don't get that because they haven't signed.
We know from the history and the age of the properties out there, there's probably a lot of septic systems that need to be failed that are not registered on this list. It just from the amount of conversations that we've had, I'm sure you have, it would point to, a majority of these systems are coming to their design life.
And really, like I go back to the drain field age, you'll see that most of them are 40 years plus. So that's their original drain field. And that, even talking with the county, that's the big red flag. Because if they don't have more room to put another one in, or they're on their reserve, they're running out of space on their property.
On the flip side, I can tell you, this has been an amazing kind of process that we've had in terms of because Ryan and I, we were involved in the original conversations of how, and Eric, of how do we get sewer to these older neighborhoods, because it's an extremely difficult conversation we're having until this program got created, so I do want to just commend council on continuing it, because it has been extremely successful beyond what our original thoughts were, and that's just by, I mean, the proof is in the amount of applications that you're seeing before you.
Can we take a question from the
We
audience?
can't, right now, we can't take questions. Sorry.
Right, Dan. What if somebody, if some of the systems failed, what do? Do they get a temporary permit or are they condemned by their house?
They try to figure out options with the county until such time they get sewer. Sometimes there are minor options that may keep it together, other times they've got more serious problems, so.
That could be, yeah, one example of a failing system is here's my monthly invoice from the septic company because they have to come pump it every month. And I've been doing this every month for a year.
Yeah.
So please build a line in our street so I can get off of this because they have no other option.
I am sympathetic to the point about equity though, and if it looked like all of these projects were going to one area where the market valuation of these
Yeah.
homes was, way high above median, multiple times or something like that, I would want to know that. I don't see it. That's not my sense looking at the map, but
I don't see it either.
it's a good point.
It is a good point.
I don't know
Agreed.
that it implicates the choices between A and B here. But I would be supportive of considering that as a factor. moving
Thinking about
forward.
that, yeah, I agree.
If there was some way to, I mean.
Yeah, that's the
So
only.
let's go back to you, because we do have that, as both Teresa and Jason pointed out, there's that other category that we have some flexibility in, like we did with cycles, right? We just put some like the number of times that's an application. I envision what we could try to do, work with our data folks.
We have better
to see if we
data.
can put some
Economic.
type of socioeconomic data on the column to give it another consideration as you're weighing options. So I think we could probably figure that out.
And I'm thinking for myself a little bit about how this committee is gonna work when the community building subcommittee is no longer, and whether there will or to what extent a future administrative policy on this program could or should include
Mhm.
scoring evaluation criteria. So I think that's all kind of food for thought.
So with that recommendation, I think we'll just look at updating updating the data to include that for future applications. You had asked something else. I want to make sure we captured. I thought there was one other thing too that I may be blanking on. Does anybody else have any other suggestions? Oh, on the
ADU and
or the
HOAs.
HOA kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think state law now requires, basically overrides HOA rules on that. And so if folks do want to incorporate ADUs, I don't think their HOA rules can stop, their HOA can stop them, I think. I don't know. That was my understanding.
Yeah, are you thinking of House Bill 2001?
Yeah.
Or something else?
Is it more than ADUs are kind of now allowed, right? in
Yeah.
areas of town, so.
Yeah, I thought they were on any residential.
Yeah.
Yeah, whereas last time this was discussed, that was not in place, and so.
When this was originally created, yeah, there wasn't we really weren't looking at the potential for other things on the property. It was more of how do we just help these failing septic tanks. But since then, since House Bill 2001 and the other kind of state legislation has happened, we could take a look to see if there's anything there. We understand the question. I think it might already be overwritten and people can do what they want on their lot to do additional development, so.
Yeah, I'm not really worried about it.
Okay.
It's a good question, though.
I'm pretty sure it's.
And then one of the comments that Councilman Mendez pointed out, the septic systems that are failing. So remember that the 3 points per system that fails, as you can see, 3 points does really separate the ranking.
Mhm.
So when it shows through that one less system that fails, you drop. You do notice a change.
Yeah, I think that sounds appropriate. I think this is a really innovative, creative program that gives us a really good framework to think about how to move forward. And so I feel pretty comfortable with option A, but I'm open to hearing other ideas on this too.
What about option A?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we would be looking for an emotion.
I'm to approve option A. Looking at Ian.
As presented by
As
staff.
presented by staff.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Great.
Jason,
There you go.
had there been a tie, which way would you?
Question.
Question.
Yeah, that's the backup slide.
I just want to commend
Their
staff again
prize
for
flyer.
Yeah, that's
a very successful program.
Well, and
over
I've
the
been saying
years.
this to a few of you too. I think this, because this has really kind of flipped the script and we're seeing neighbors come to us instead of having this adversarial. If we can apply this in maybe other areas, going back
Yep.
to like housing, if there's infrastructure requirements.
Yep.
And we can get a competitive list of applications and kind of really look and be thoughtful about how we deploy
Mhm.
resources, particularly those utility resources for water and sewer. This could be kind of a template to maybe apply it in broader context.
Yeah, may
And
I
I
ask
guess-
one more question? Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, because we receive emails about this, sometimes it's worth reiterating that this is to comply with a state requirement, and that if somebody does not want to participate in this program, they don't have to participate in this program. This is about assisting people in connecting their septic systems to municipal sewage and finding the most cost-effective way to do that, which is a huge challenge.
Ryan and I'm sure you've lived this as well. It's probably one of the hardest conversations that we have as staff is people with failing septic systems.
Yeah.
And this program has provided that outlet where we didn't have another place to go with the conversation. But I mean, these were very emotional, very hard conversations to have, and we're just grateful that the program's here and helping trying to figure out how to work through this.
Nice. I was just curious, are there, I mean, are there neighborhoods on septic who you like are not coming to us and getting enrolled in the program that maybe we should be doing proactive outreach to? I'm just curious if there's neighborhoods that are sort of
We
missing the boat
don't
for some
do
reason.
much outreach to those areas. It's been talked about, but right now we have 34 million dollars worth of application, which
Yeah.
would make it more difficult, I think, if we went out there and drummed up more
Mhm.
interest with still a very minimal
Yeah,
budget.
yeah, it's interesting if you look at a map of the city as a whole and you highlight the ones that these are on septic. The three primary areas in the city are Kings Forest, which we've been actively working in for years. This area north of Reed off Pettigrew, which we're making a huge dent in. And then the other large area is kind of between the Parkway and Brookswood, down by Amethyst. And we've done early phases of trunk lines. And one of Jason's future projects is another trunk line through that area. Once you've got those backbone lines in, it's pretty incredible that there's just some sporadic other areas where maybe 5 houses here or 6 houses there, but those are the 3 big areas that we've.
And then you see like the
managed
Kemple, which is on that west side, they had come up like. This is their 6th time
Yeah.
to submit. It's hard because that's pretty isolated. Like the solution out
Yeah.
there is pretty costly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those are the 3 big areas.
And if we hear anything, if there's issues with septics in an area, we immediately turn them over to the people sitting at the table here to
Yeah.
get them introduced to the program.
And just to let, I mean, this kind of the stepping back. One of the reasons why we're faced with this is the city back in the late 90s had a pretty aggressive annexation strategy that annexed in county properties in the late 90s that didn't have adequate infrastructure. So, you know, I'm not trying to question that. I mean, there was folks, a lot of reasons for that decision, but I think moving forward, I think we need to look really critically at the needed infrastructure before you annex in property, because it's something that when you weigh the sort of pros and cons of additional property tax revenue with the infrastructure investments, we need to be making that decision with all that information.
All right, so that is the only item we had, so is there any other comments?
Bye-bye subcommittee.
Thank you for your time and effort in this endeavor. You building subcommittee.
We still do care about building community though, just.
That's it.
Just don't have-
That's it. We're done.
Can I just get a motion to adjourn?
Oh, move to adjourn.
Just trying to drive her.
Yeah.